Olivia Reed, 27, is a newly started interior designer living alone in New York. She is strong and intelligent, but deeply wounded by a past relationship. Born and raised in a small town in Vermont, Olivia has always had dreams of reaching out. She left her hometown at the age of 18, carrying in her heart the dream of a free life and a brilliant career in the bustling city. After many years of studying and working hard, Olivia finally opened her own small interior design office, a tiny corner in Brooklyn but full of passion and creativity. Although she is strong and decisive at work, Olivia is extremely reserved in love. Her 3-year relationship with her ex-boyfriend, who betrayed her with his close colleague, left Olivia with a lingering pain. Since then, she has closed her heart, no longer believing in sweet words and quick relationships. For her, love is now a luxury. One chilly fall weekend night in New York, Olivia was dragged by her best friend Lily to a charity fundraiser at the posh Plaza Hotel. Olivia initially refused, citing her busy schedule. But Lily, a bubbly, party-loving girl who never takes the word no, wouldn't let Olivia go. Dressed in an elegant black dress, Olivia stepped into the grand ballroom, lit by crystal chandeliers and filled with classical music. She felt a little out of place in the elegant crowd, women in sparkling jewelry and gentlemen in Armani suits. Olivia was about to retreat to get a drink when her eyes fell on a lone man standing near the balcony, Alexander Knight. He was tall and elegant in a black tuxedo, his slightly curly hair neatly combed back. His eyes were cold as ice but contained an indescribable loneliness. He did not smile, did not communicate, just stood there with a glass of whiskey in his hand, like a stranger in the world he ruled. Lily whispered into Olivia's ear, "That's Alexander Knight, the youngest CEO to make the Forbes list last year. I heard he's very private, never letting anyone know about his private matters." Olivia just nodded. She didn't care about fame, but Alexander's gaze when he glanced at her, not rude or curious, was curious and thoughtful, as if they had met in another life. Around midnight, Olivia stepped out onto the balcony to escape the noise. The cool autumn air felt refreshing, and coincidentally, Alexander was standing there too. They didn't say anything for a while, just looking out at the distant New York skyline. Then he spoke first. His voice was deep but slightly hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken to anyone in a long time. "Are you bored with this world too?" Olivia turned, surprised by his frankness, but instead of avoiding it, she smiled. "I find it a little fake, like everyone is playing a role they don't like." Alexander looked at her for a long time, not the look of a man judging by appearance, but the rare look where a stranger touches the truest part of another person. The conversation flowed, without barriers, without role-playing. They talked about life, about loss, about feeling alone even in a crowd. Olivia felt strange. She had never opened up to anyone so quickly, but there was something about Alexander that made her trust him. Maybe it was the emptiness behind the glamour. Maybe it was because he, like her, was looking for someone to understand him, if only for one night. That night, they left the party together. No promises, no questions about tomorrow. They just let their emotions guide them. And in Alexander's quiet penthouse, between the windows overlooking the sleepless city, two lonely people found each other, like two stars touching and melting into the darkness. The next morning, the early morning sunlight streamed into the large room. Olivia opened her eyes, feeling strangely at ease. Alexander was still sleeping, his expression strangely peaceful. She left no message. She left no name. She just quietly put her dress back on and walked out of the luxurious apartment as if she had never been there. And just like that, she left, without a trace. Olivia left Alexander Knight's penthouse, a different person. On the surface, everything continued as usual. She went to her small office in Brooklyn, met with clients, edited drawings, drank her usual latte from the corner cafe. But inside Olivia, something had changed. It was as if, after that night, a part of her heart that had been locked away had opened slightly and burned. She expected nothing from Alexander. They were strangers in two very different worlds. One night, no matter how sweet or captivating, was not enough to bring two fates together. Olivia told herself that over and over again, like a promise. But 3 weeks later, as her body began to change, Olivia sensed something was wrong. She wasn't one to panic. But when the pregnancy test showed two clear lines, her hands shook. She sat quietly in her small apartment for a long time, the afternoon sunlight shining through the window on her soft brown hair. Not a single tear fell, only a long, tense silence. A series of questions rang through her head. What will I do next? Should I tell him? What if he refuses? Or worse, thinks I'm taking advantage of him? But then Olivia took a deep breath. She put her hand on her belly, and though she couldn't feel anything yet, in that moment, she knew she wasn't alone, and that this child deserved to be loved, not for Alexander, not for the hope of having a family, but because her heart told her that this child was a part of her, the result of a moment of truth, however brief. And if she had built her career from scratch, then being a single mother would not break her. But Olivia also knew that things would not be easy. She had no family in New York. She needed a fresh start, where no one knew about her past, no one asked about the father of her child, and above all, she needed peace to prepare for her new role in life. One October morning, Olivia packed up her things, closed her small office, and said goodbye to a few close friends. She didn't say why, she just said she needed some time off. And so she moved to Boston, where she had an aunt who lived alone and needed help running a local furniture store. It wasn't as flashy or exciting as New York, but Boston had quiet old streets, mild sunny days, and a pace of life slow enough for Olivia to breathe. The first 3 months of pregnancy were a series of days when she both vomited and tried to get used to a completely new reality. Mornings when she woke up tired but still determined. Late nights when she held her belly and smiled to herself when she felt the small changes in her body. Olivia rented a small apartment on the third floor of a red brick building with a balcony filled with lavender, her favorite flower since childhood. Every night she sat there, writing in her diary, recording her pregnancy journey, and occasionally sketching interior designs, as a way to keep her passion alive. There were nights when Olivia cried silently, nights when she lay curled up, her hand on her stomach, remembering Alexander's eyes, a calm, pained gaze that she would never forget. He has a right to know, she sometimes thought. But then I told myself, no, this is my choice, and I will not raise my child in a war of responsibility or an argument about the past. Her heart was in a constant battle. On one side was reason, reminding her that Alexander and she did not belong together, that he did not know, and probably did not want to know. On the other side was emotion, where every look, every touch, every heartbeat that they shared that night still lingered. She was strong. No one could deny that. But being a mother, alone, in a new city, it wasn't easy. There were times when she almost broke down. But then, just a little kick in the belly, a heartbeat during a routine checkup. She felt a little stronger. And deep in Olivia's heart, there was still a soft corner, a place called Alexander. Even though she tried to deny it, his image still occasionally crept into her dreams, where he was no longer cold, but a man who came to hug her tightly, whispering, "You are not alone." Even though that dream will probably never come true, Olivia still holds on to it as a beautiful secret in her journey to motherhood. A year has flown by like a whirlwind. Olivia Reed is now not only a woman who has suffered, but also a mother, strong, courageous, but also filled with worries. Her son, Liam, was almost 8 months old now. A handsome little boy with deep, gray-blue eyes that sometimes sparkled with a strange curiosity. Every time Olivia looked at him, she saw Alexander in her mind. Not because she was trying to imagine it, but because the resemblance was so obvious. The straight nose, the quiet eyes, and even the slight tilt of his head. Olivia still lives a modest life in Boston. She works part-time at a furniture store, taking on freelance projects to make ends meet. It's hard work, but she's happy with her choice. Many times she's thought about sending Alexander a letter, an email, just a note saying, "I have a child." But then she deletes it. He might not care. Or worse, he might take custody. She couldn't bear to be away from Liam. The baby was her whole world. Life seemed to go on peacefully like that, until Liam fell ill. One spring afternoon, Olivia discovered her son had a high fever, was breathing rapidly, and was crying incessantly. She took him to the local hospital, thinking it was just a common cold. But after a few tests, the doctor ordered further testing. There was an abnormality in Liam's blood profile related to genetics. Olivia sat motionless in the examination room as the doctor gently asked, "We need your father's medical records, or at least his family history. Any history of heart disease, allergies, or blood disorders?" Olivia was speechless. She had never thought she would need it. Her mind was a jumble of images. Alexander, her son's face, the steady beep of the heart monitor, and the doctor's worried eyes. Olivia lay awake that night. She held Liam close, her hand on his forehead, and sang him soft lullabies. A storm was brewing inside her. If she kept quiet, what if Liam needed special treatment? What if a little information from his father could save his life? Olivia couldn't wait any longer. She knew what to do. A week later, she returned to New York. It was still the same city, noisy, flashy, sometimes making people feel too small. But this time, Olivia did not come with a weak heart or a dream. She came as a mother, someone ready to face everything, including the eyes of the man she had tried to forget for the past year. She rented a small Airbnb near Central Park, where the light was good enough for Liam to play in the morning. Olivia packed carefully, medical records, birth certificates, photos, and necessary documents. Every step, every breath, she felt like she was carrying a mountain on her shoulders. Then that day came. Alexander's penthouse was unchanged, still a modern high-rise with a stern reception desk and security guards in suits. Olivia walked in, her heart pounding. She held Liam, who was fast asleep, his cheeks flushed and his breathing light. The elevator reached the top floor. Olivia took a deep breath, feeling her palms sweat. She stood in front of the elegant wooden door, raised her hands slightly, and knocked. 3 knocks rang out, clear and distinct. There was no turning back. The door opened a few seconds later. Alexander appeared, still handsome and polished, but with a look of disinterest, as if he had just left a meeting. He frowned at first, not recognizing Olivia, but a beat later, his eyes fell on her face, and then slid down to the boy in her arms. Silence fell. The whole world seemed to stop for those few seconds. Alexander stood still. His eyes widened. His lips moved, but no words came out. He looked at Olivia, the woman he had not seen since that fateful night. And then his gaze fell on the child. Dark brown hair, gray-blue eyes, an undeniable reflection. "Olivia," he whispered as if he couldn't believe his eyes. She swallowed. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her voice was steady as ever. "We need to talk, Alexander, about this." She gently squeezed Liam. The boy was still sleeping soundly, unaware that at this moment, the door of his fate had just been knocked open. The luxurious apartment suddenly felt cramped with a heavy atmosphere, as if the walls were holding back every gasp. Alexander stood there, motionless. There was doubt in his eyes, a shock he could not name. His eyes were fixed on the baby in Olivia's arms, a vivid picture from a memory he had never had the chance to hold. "The boy is my son?" His voice was hoarse. It was unclear whether it was from emotion or anger. Olivia nodded very slightly, her eyes moist but still looking straight ahead. She didn't flinch. Alexander took a step back, as if he had just been punched in the chest. "You kept it from me for a year?" His voice was higher this time, filled with anger. "For a year I didn't know I had a child. Why, Olivia? Why did you take that away from me?" Liam began to squirm in his mother's arms, uncomfortable with the tension in the air. Olivia patted his back, murmuring soothing words, then gently placed him in the portable beside her, before turning back to face Alexander. "Because that night was just a moment, Alexander," she said, her voice trembling but firm. I didn't think you would care. I was scared. I didn't know you beyond that night. I didn't want my child to grow up with a father who only saw me as a fleeting memory." Alexander smiled faintly, his eyes filled with pain. "You made the decision for me. You took away my fatherhood just because of what you imagined." "It's not my imagination," Olivia protested, tears starting to roll down her face. "Do you know how many nights I've spent lying awake wondering? Hundreds of emails I've written and deleted, picked up the phone 1,000 times without the courage to call? I didn't hide it because I hated you. I hid it because I wasn't sure if you wanted to know." Alexander turned away, His hands braced on the marble counter, his head bowed. He was trying to keep calm, but his clenched white knuckles said it all. After a long while, he said, his voice quiet but choked, "I could have been there when my child was born. I could have held him for the first time, heard him cry, put my hand on his little chest, and no, I had a reason to slow down." Olivia choked. "I'm sorry." Alexander turned back, his eyes softer but still filled with hurt. He walked closer to the crib, looking at Liam sleeping soundly, breathing evenly. He gently touched his son's cheek with one hand. The look in his eyes had changed. No longer angry, only unspoken emotion. "He looks so much like me," he whispered, his eyes watering. "But his eyelashes are yours, and the way his lips purse when he sleeps." Olivia stood behind him, silent. She didn't know what was going on inside the man, but she could feel something breaking. Not anger, but a wall that had been built up for a long time. Alexander turned around. This time he didn't question her anymore, just asked quietly, "How have you been this past year?" "It was hard, but I have never regretted keeping him," Olivia replied, her eyes steady. "I don't need you to take responsibility, Alexander. I'm here for the baby. The doctors need your medical information to monitor his health. I had no choice." Alexander nodded slightly, accepting that reason, but in his heart he knew clearly. She came not only out of duty. Silence fell once more. They looked at each other, and in that moment, the line between past and present blurred. It was still Olivia, the woman he had not been able to forget for the past year. It was still Alexander, the man she had given her heart to in just one short night. "We can't change what happened," Olivia whispered, "but maybe we can choose how we deal with it." Alexander looked at her for a long time. In his eyes, the old flame had never died, but now beside the passion was something deeper. Responsibility, affection for a small creature, a chance to start over. He took a deep breath, stepped closer to Olivia, and looked her straight in the eyes. "I need time to understand everything," he said slowly. "But Olivia, if you will allow me, I want to start over. Not just for my son, but for ourselves." The answer remained unspoken, but in Olivia's moist eyes there was a gentle acceptance, like dawn after a long storm. A week after that fateful meeting, Olivia still couldn't sort out all the emotions in her heart. She stayed in New York, in the small apartment that Alexander had prepared for just one night, fully furnished, clean, cozy, and close enough to his house to make her wary. But then the next day, Alexander arrived, carrying a bag full of toys, children's books, and 2 cups of hot coffee. "I didn't know what Liam liked, so I brought everything," he scratched his head, embarrassed like a schoolboy going to his girlfriend's house for the first time. Olivia smiled, truly seeing Alexander's clumsiness for the first time. Liam clung to his mother at first, but it didn't take long for the stranger to be drawn to his deep voice and rare smile. Alexander sat on the floor, letting Liam climb up his legs like it was a game. They read books together, built Lego towers, and every time Liam giggled, Olivia felt her heart ache. Not with pain, but with something very close to happiness. In the following days, Alexander came more often. At first it was every afternoon. Then every morning, he would stop by just to watch Liam eat breakfast, give him a peck on the forehead, and go to work. One day he asked Olivia if he could take Liam for a walk in Central Park. Olivia followed, silently observing them from a distance. And for the first time, she saw a different Alexander. No suit, no phone, no busy schedule. There was only one man bending down to tie his son's shoelaces, coaxing him with a strangely gentle voice, then lifting Liam onto his shoulders, laughing loudly with his son under the bright spring sunshine. One night, Olivia woke up in the middle of the night and saw the living room light was still on. She walked out and found Alexander sitting alone, his laptop open to Fatherhood for Beginners. "I'm learning how to change diapers," he laughed, a little embarrassed. "It's harder than real estate investing." Olivia looked surprised, then laughed. She didn't remember laughing so much since Liam was born. "You don't have to do all this," she whispered. Alexander looked up, his eyes steady. "I didn't do it out of obligation. I did it because I've missed so much." The words made Olivia's heart clench. She realized Alexander had changed. One time Liam had a high fever. Olivia was worried, confused, and almost cried. She didn't know what to do but call Alexander. Less than 10 minutes later, he was there, with his own pediatrician, a bag full of medicine, and a bowl of his own homemade porridge. Alexander sat by his bedside all night, wiping away his sweat, humming lullabies in a low, husky voice. That night, Liam said "da da" in his sleep for the first time. Olivia stood in the door, her hands clutching the wooden frame, tears rolling down her face. She never expected that the man she once thought was untouchable could be so warm. One Saturday afternoon, they went out together. No plan, no assistant, no chauffeur. Just the three of them. A cart, a sidewalk, ice cream shop, and laughter in the sunset. Alexander opened up. He talked about his childhood of being neglected by his parents, his nameless fears, and why he once chose to live alone among billions of dollars. I thought I was strong because I didn't need anyone. But when I saw the baby sleeping in your arms, I realized I've been weak all my life. Olivia squeezed his hand silently. She didn't need him to be perfect. She just needed him to be real. Alexander changes. He is no longer the cold billionaire, but a responsible and gentle father. He gradually enters the life of his children, then Olivia. One Friday night, Alexander's penthouse was filled with laughter. Close friends, colleagues, and a few family members gathered for what Alexander called a fateful dinner. Olivia wore an elegant cream-colored dress with her hair loose, while Liam wore a mini suit that made everyone laugh because of his mini handsomeness. In the middle of the party, Alexander stepped up, raised his glass, and looked at the mother and son sitting in the middle of the room. He cleared his throat, then said in an emotional voice, "A year ago, I had a night that I thought would forever be a fleeting memory. But it turned out that the miracle came from that very night." The room fell silent. Alexander's eyes fell on Olivia. She knocked on my door, bringing a gift I never dreamed of, a family. He approached, took her hand, and held it as if it were a promise. I didn't know what miracle happened after that night until you knocked on the door. Thank you for following the story. If you love emotional and surprising stories like this, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next journey. See you in the next video. Love.